So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success story series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forward. And today I'm delighted to have with us Fiona Hale, who's the Managing Director at CoolCare. So firstly, Fiona, thank you so much for sparing the time for us today. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and CoolCare and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you very much for having me on. So I'm Fiona Hale, as you mentioned, and I'm Managing Director of CoolCare. We produce care home administration software. So that basically helps to make running a care home easier, more efficient and more profitable. And so we assist with really the business operation of the care home. So if you think of everything from workforce management, that's your time and attendance, clocking in and out of your staff, making that automatic rather than manual timesheets, through to HR records and rostering and everything to kind of manage your staff group. And then on the resident side, we help with inquiry and occupancy management. So making sure from that initial phone call from a relative through to the moving into the home and then managing the billing aspect of your relationship with the customer. So helping you to capture all that revenue really quickly and easily and just saving a lot of time for care homes. So there's a lot of admin. Care homes run as businesses. You've still got to manage your staff. You've got to make sure that you're getting in all the revenue that you're owed. And ultimately, what do you want to do in a care home? You want to spend your time looking after and caring for your residents. So our software there is to make all that back office running as smooth as possible, save the people on the ground time, make everything easier, and then ultimately help the bottom line by boosting occupancy, which is hugely important. And then we work with other partners in the industry who then do the more clinical caring side of actually looking after the care plans for the residents. And we kind of deal with the business elements and they work on the care side. It makes a really fruitful partnership.
Brilliant. It's funny, we often come across, we find that one of our standard sort of beliefs is great small businesses, SME businesses are started typically by people that are good at and passionate about what they do. They're not always great about running a business at what they do. So having support from a system like something that's a big thing we often do is help people systemize what they do. So having a system that works already must be a real help for people that, as you say, their primary focus is bound to be the care of the people they're looking after.
Definitely. And I think it's it's not what you want to do. You don't go into care to do timesheets. No. More often than not, but it's a huge part of the business. Staff costs are about 75% of care homes running costs, and it's a relatively fixed cost, regardless of how many residents you've got. And it's an important thing to get right. It's not just the time it takes to actually do all these kind of manual timesheets. It's also the amount of errors that you're going to end up with, and for your staff having to go back and check, have I been paid the right amount? When am I next on shift? I've got to go and find that paper handwritten rota. Well, actually, wouldn't it be just better if they had it on their phone and they could just see what hours had gone onto their timesheet, what rate they're being paid at? And so rather than you spending your time as a care home manager kind of going through the timesheet trying to work out what on earth happened, you can just look at the records and you can be confident that it's the right thing. Saves you a load of time. You can also then just message your staff directly and say, I've got a shift available, would you like to come in and cover it, rather than spending hours kind of calling people around. But yeah, you're quite right. I think it's often the case that you don't think of care homes as running as a business, and a lot of us feel very uncomfortable with that, and I think those in the care home don't want it to feel like a business, because it's not. What they're really there to do is care. But not for profits, charities, whatever it is, you've got business functions there, and even if you're not for profit, you're definitely not for loss either. And so that means you want to make sure that you're running everything as efficiently as possible, because then whatever you then do with that surplus time, with that surplus money that you've raised, it's up to you. And in most cases in these care homes, it goes straight back in to helping those people that they're looking after and making the caring service better.
100%. I mean, whatever the organisation, the business, the not-for-profit is, the more effective and efficiently they run, the more they can spend time and investment doing the things they really want to do. And I totally believe that. I mean, as a business coach, I do work with not-for-profits and charities and social enterprise, and you know, the more advanced ones, in my opinion, talk about making profit so that they can use that profit to do more of the good work they do. They don't see it as a dirty word, they just see it as the enabler for doing more. And I think, you know, that's the point. And because, you know, profit comes from efficiency, amongst other things, comes from efficiency. So the more efficient we can be, the more effective we can be delivering our product or service.
I think so. And I think there's another element to it as well that often gets overlooked, is that often a well-run business is also a good business to work for.
Yes.
And we're in a recruitment crisis at the moment across most sectors, but particularly in care. And you know, would you choose to work for the care home that is, you know, you don't know when your next shift's coming, you're constantly being paid the wrong amount, you've not had a supervision and appraisal in a while, and your training's out of date, or the care home where that's all sorted, and you know, you've got clear records of it, and your expectation of the company is really clear, and they meet it. You know, I think it's not all about the profit. I think that's, you know, anything that's well run leads to better outcomes across the board, and that's quality of service, bottom line, staff satisfaction, because you have got more time and space to make all aspects of your business better, and you know, you can build that trust with your staff, with your customer base, because you know, you're organized. It's a really key point.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not either or, it's both, isn't it? It's efficiency means we can not just be profitable, we can deliver our care better, as you rightly say, because we've got more time and capability. And we, you know what, we find working with small businesses across the spectrum that time is probably the biggest challenge of most business leaders, is they don't have enough time to do the things they know they should be doing. So anything that makes them more effective and gives them more time is bound to be useful. I'm interested to know a little bit more about your background, how you got into business and why this particular one.
Yeah, so it's a slightly strange story. So I never set out to be a managing director or a managing director of a software company. It's not my background at all. I actually started my career in public affairs. So for my sins, I was a lobbyist, but I worked across a range of policy areas, and health and social care was my key area of specialty. And through that, I got to know Lawrence Tomlinson, who's the chairman of our mother company, so our mother group that owns CoolCare. And at that time, he kind of asked me to come on board and work for him, to be his advisor. And we worked for a number of years together on different areas of policy when he was in the Department for Business as an entrepreneur in residence. And he then gave me lots of exposure across his group of businesses to different opportunities. So I was head of communications for the whole of the L&T group. And I did all sorts of other things during that time. And in the end, Lawrence said to me, oh, you know, CoolCare, the software company, it was called L&T Software at the time, it's got a new product that we need to bring to launch. You know, we don't really have a management team in there at the moment. Would you like to have a go at running a business? You know, social care. I'd worked extensively with the operational company, Ideal Care Homes, in L&T. So he said, well, you know, this is your opportunity to run a business. Here you go. So I started off as commercial director. It was meant to be 1 day a week as part of my other roles as well, because I was still head of communications at that time. And yeah, just fell in love with the business, could see a huge amount of potential in it. And after about a year, I moved full-time into CoolCare and took the role of managing director. So yeah, not your average kind of story.
Wow, well, that's how fascinating. So, I mean, when you were growing up, is either lobbying or running a business what you wanted to do, or did you have other plans?
So initially I wanted to be a vet. So I think it's safe to say I didn't quite end up on that pathway. I must admit, I didn't ever really know what I wanted to do, even coming up to picking what I did at university. So I went and I did a law degree. I, to this day, don't quite understand why I did a law degree, but I thought it'd be a useful degree to have, and I would enjoy it. And I took an interest through that in the philosophical side of law. I'd done philosophy A level. I really enjoyed that, and especially the political theory. So then I went off and did a master's in legal and political theory. And during that, I did an internship at a public affairs company. Absolutely loved it, and that's kind of how I've made my way through my career. I've just found opportunities that I've enjoyed. I've never really had a plan. I've just always wanted to do something that I enjoyed and that motivated me. I think that's been the key throughout my career.
Brilliant. And I think what's the phrase? If you do what you love, then you never do a day's work in your life. I think that's really relevant. And through your career and work with CoolCare especially, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome?
I think for me in particular, like my personal challenge has been that I've learned through experience. So I mean, certainly coming into working in CoolCare for the first time, I use software. I'm a great believer in using a tool to make your life easier, and I'd certainly used CoolCare when I was in Ideal Care Homes, but I didn't really know anything about running a software business. Certainly not a software as a service business, and it's quite a different business model. So it was a very steep learning curve of, first of all, coming into a new business with quite a big challenge at the time, in that we had the incumbent product, CoolCare 3, and we wanted to move people over to the new product, which was still in development. So we're in a bit of a period of stasis. That was quite a challenge, and just understanding then, right, what do we need to do? It's kind of being thrown into a turnaround position with a company without any experience. So it was a challenge, but an interesting one. And through that period, learned a lot of lessons, and we had to work really hard on changing the culture of the company as well. Not that it was a bad culture; it was just it moved from being try to find the best way to describe it, but we were part of the group, and CoolCare did have external customers. It has done for many years, but it was always kind of part of the bigger group, linking in very closely to the operational side of the business. When it came to looking at launching our new product, we saw, well, actually, no, this is a really good time for CoolCare. Yes, to still have those close links, that's hugely important to us, but to have its own standalone commercial presence, its own future, its own goals. And so we had to really change the thinking inside the company, put in some different processes, grow the team, find the right people. And that was a challenging. I say challenging, it was exciting, it was enjoyable. It was a good challenge, but difficult. I think from the business's perspective, that going through that migration of customers from the old system to the new system, that from a business perspective was a huge challenge.
No, I can totally understand that. And it's interesting you say about being exciting. I think there's I was told, I've never checked it out because I don't want it to not to be true, but apparently there's in one of the Chinese dialects, one of the symbol for challenge has two parts. One is problem and one is opportunity. And I just love that idea that a problem, a challenge is something you have to overcome, but it's also something that could be a great opportunity too. And what would you say through your career? What are some of the biggest learnings that you've had in business?
I think the biggest one that I think that's helpful to share is that qualifications are helpful. I think they're a good thing to have. They help to hone skills, but they are not everything. And actually, the ability, the personality, the general skill set is the more important thing. The drive to make the change and to understand. I see it's certainly coming into the business and I don't have any business qualifications. I've very much learned by experience, and it's very easy at that point to compare yourself to others and go, well, I can't possibly be doing such a good job because, you know, I've not got an MBA, I've not got this, I've not got that. And actually you soon realize that that isn't everything, because what you need to have is the analytic mindset, the ability to see the opportunity, as you say, in the challenge, not see the negatives, and see how best you can get from step one through to your goal. And I think that's for me been my biggest lesson, is actually identifying what it is I'm good at and why I've been able to jump into these different roles, and then actually reflect that in my own recruitment practice. You know, what do I look at when I'm looking for an employee? Again, qualifications are important. I will say that. I'm not saying that, you know, that I don't see any value in them. Certainly if you're doing forensic accounting, qualifications are extremely important. But I think in general, you know, I look past that. I look at what people are saying, how they're interacting, whether that's going to be the right person for the team. Most importantly, are they going to understand what we're doing? Are they going to work in the way that we work? And am I going to be able to give them a problem and they'll come up with a solution? Those are the things that matter to me more than anything else. It's the mindset rather than the piece of paper that says, you know, you're able to write an answer in an exam. That to me is relatively meaningless without everything else alongside it.
Completely agree. It's funny, we often say, you know, traditional recruitment, most people recruit on experience and qualification, but sack on attitude. And so why not recruit, you know, primarily on attitude? Absolutely, as you said, base level of experience. I always think if I ever need a brain surgeon, I'd like them to be fairly qualified, but as well, not just really enthusiastic, but but yeah, exactly right. And you know, it's over time we've developed our recruitment process primarily based on the people with the right attitude, wanting to work for our business, for our vision, for our values and purpose. And if they're engaged enough, we actually have a deselection process rather than a selection process of making it difficult for people to apply. Even in these challenging times of recruiting, we'd rather one person that was absolutely committed to the company vision and mission than 3 or 4 people that weren't, in all honesty, because you will get so much more from them in terms of you know, output and commitment, loyalty, drive. So I completely agree. I think it's wonderful to hear, actually. And you're probably aware we're a coaching organisation primarily, and I'm interested to know who might be the best coaches you've ever worked with, whether that's in business, sport, life, and what would make them so.
I've never had a formal coach, so to speak, but with the different roles I've had, I've been really lucky that I've been able to see some exceptional people in action and work alongside them. You know, if I go back to when I was working in public affairs, I got to work with a range of different businesses, different types of businesses, and right up at the top, you know, is straight out of first job, you know, advising and working alongside CEOs of big corporates, of trade associations, working on private equity projects. So that was huge. And then since being at LNT, I mean, you know, working with someone like Lawrence, the experience that you get from that, seeing his mindset in action, you know, how he approaches things, how he works, you know, it just gives you that understanding and exposure. And I say I've been very, very lucky to be able to work with him like that. And it's not that I would ever want to replicate Lawrence. I can't. Lawrence is Lawrence, and you know, that's his way of working, but it gives you a huge insight into the way that his mind works, the way he approaches things, and how successful he's been. And the rest of the L&T Group board as well, in particular Matt Lowe, the chief exec, you know, because they've trusted me, they've given me projects, and I say I've learned by experience, and their coaching was, here you go, Fee, here's a problem, go and solve it, and we'll tell you if we think you did a good job at it, and if not, why not, you know. And that it's been amazing. I mean, I can't thank either of them enough for the experience they've given me. But I say they're not a formal coach, you know, they've not sat down and said, Fee, this is how you get better. It's very much, you know, watch what you do, and and have a go at it. Sink or swim, but we know you'll swim, but here you go, push.
Wonderful. Well, sometimes it's just that I think sometimes it's knowing that you have the confidence of people around you, people that you respect, is really important. It's that supporting part. And sometimes when we don't have the confidence, knowing that other people do in us can be all we need. And have you? I'm interested to know if you picked up or use any favorite quotes or sayings as you move forward. I tend to collect them. I'm interested if you've got any.
I tend to dislike kind of quotes and sayings. I don't like the cliche of it. Something that kind of, you put up on Instagram. I like something that will actually help me. I do have a couple I won't repeat because I don't think they're appropriate.
I won't worry about that, honestly.
But the favorite one, the one that does help me the most often, and that I used to challenge myself, is one of Lawrence's, which is, do something today that will make the difference. Don't wait for the big idea. And I find that the most helpful when you're having that moment of, getting bogged down in detail about, right, what are we going to do about this? I'm planning it all out, and you just go, actually, no, like, just what can I do to take myself a step forward? How can I just get something moving, rather than getting yourself tied up in all these different options or waiting for something to occur? I think it's the most salient piece of advice I've been given is just sometimes you've got to do something, and that at least will take you down a path. And then you can build and be flexible along the way, and that fits really well with the kind of agile mindset that we take to how we develop our product, how we run our business, and to how I see my business life in general. I think it's one that fits very well for me, and I think would be helpful for others as well. Just sometimes just do something.
Brilliant. It brings to mind the idea of sort of the aggregation of of incremental gains. The Dale Brailsford made it very, brought it to the fore in Pretty Cycling, and this idea of let's just see if we can improve lots of different things by a small amount, and when you aggregate them all up, you made a massive change. And because, as you say, the massive advancement, the massive innovation isn't going to happen every day, but small changes can, I guess.
Yeah, and you don't have to be the first to do something. You've just got to be better than somebody else, and I think that's a really key thing. If you're waiting for something that's going to be revolutionary, well, you could be waiting for a long time and someone could pip you to the post. But if you know what you can do to just improve and to be one bit better than you were yesterday, then that's something that you can actually use going forward.
And I think the idea of being one step ahead of, let's say, the competition or whatever. There's a lovely phrase in Australia. Well, I say lovely, but it says that they say you don't have to swim faster than a crocodile. You just have to swim faster than your mate. And it is just that little bit faster. It's true in many, many ways. Let's just be that little bit better than the next person behind us.
Yeah.
So, what would you say you've learned about yourself through your career?
I think probably kind of harking back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. I think I've realised I've seen what some of my skills are, and I think that's been the biggest lesson is the general skills. I can analyze a situation very quickly. I'm very strategic in how I think about things, and so I can often jump a few steps ahead quite quickly and come up with a good answer. I didn't ever see that as a skill set. I think it's easy to think what you're doing because it's natural to you. It's just, well, everyone can do it, and actually sometimes it's recognizing not everyone can. I have got another Lawrence phrase and an appropriate one that does. It's not something that particularly helps me, but I do need to remind myself of it sometimes. I think I've got a lot of common sense, and one of the things that Lawrence used to say to me is that the thing about common sense is it's not very common. I think I think that's true to some extent. I think it's probably a sweeping generalization, but in certain areas, actually, what seems like common sense to you is not necessarily common sense to others. And I think actually recognizing that skill and then being able to translate that and assist others with developing that skill as well. I think that's been an important lesson for me. And I've learned for myself, as long as I'm challenged and I'm passionate and enjoying what I do, I'll put my all into it, and I can usually turn my hand to it. So not everything. I don't think even if I was very passionate, I could be a brain surgeon. So don't worry, Chris. I won't be at your next operating theatre. But I think that it's an important lesson to learn about yourself. Is actually, that you can adapt.
I think adaptability is a key trait, I think, of many successful people I've spoken to. But I think also, from what what you just said is, it's one thing I learned in my career building teams was that I used to think a long time ago that everyone thought like me, and so that I couldn't get it why they didn't get it. And I think that going to your point is they don't all think like me. So if I want to communicate, I have to talk and communicate in the way they need to hear it, if that makes sense. As well as teaching the skill that we have of sometimes, but sometimes it's like, well, it's obvious, isn't it? I mean, it's just like, look, it's staring in the face. And when people go, well, it's not, it just means that I need to position what I've said in it, or what we're looking at in a different way. And it's I think those people skills are really, really valuable, especially as you build and grow teams.
And I think, to your point, that not everyone thinks like me. Nor would I want everybody to think like me, because I think a company full of me would be an absolute nightmare to manage. You do need to have people with different skills that think in different ways. I look at some of the jobs in our company, and I would not be suited to them. I would be a terrible employee. I would not be the right person for that role because of the way that I approach things and the way that I think. My attitude would be great, but I would distract. I wouldn't be able to actually, crack on and do the things that need doing, because of the way that my mind works. It wouldn't. It just wouldn't be a good fit for me. So I do think you have to remember that those elements about you are why you're in your job. There's some bits of it that will be helpful for other people in the role that you can coach into them if you want them to adopt that way of thinking. You've also got to reflect on, actually, if everybody was like you, would it work? And no, I would hate to work with a load of me's. It would be an absolute nightmare. One of me is enough. That's great. And I think it's about getting that balance. What bit of it is unique to you? What bit of it is a skill that others can learn? And which members of the team does it make sense to have that mindset?
Brilliant. Absolutely. That's a real challenging thing to do, but when it's achieved, to get the right people in the right places. I think Tom Peters used to talk about the right people on the right seats on the bus, all going in the right direction, and then everything clicks, and things are amazing. So just starting to look forward a little bit, what does the future look like for yourself and CoolCare, and what challenges do you face, if any?
The future is really bright for CoolCare. We've done well throughout the pandemic. I know a lot of companies struggled. Actually, the pandemic was helpful for us in making the case about the need to digitalize social care. I think we've seen that across a lot of sectors. But given how far behind social care was in general in adopting digital, it's really put it on the agenda now, and we see that whereas it was kind of known before the pandemic, and people were adopting, but it was slow. It wasn't top of the agenda. It's now top of the agenda for a lot of businesses in care, and there's now government targets that support that. Certainly on the digital care records, when we get 80% of care providers using a digital care record by 2024. So you know, that push towards digital will really help us. And you know, we've got a great product. We know that, you know, when someone comes and looks at our product, when they're ready to move their administration over to digital, we usually win out. So that's great. And we've got a 5-year vision of how we want to grow. What are the challenges? I think the challenge is shared by you know, most companies at the moment, but particularly acute in our sector is recruitment.
Yeah.
And you know, I've got a full team at the moment, but I know that at points we will need to grow, and as people kind of move on and change, we'll need to be able to plug people in. And the software kind of developers for years prior to the pandemic was a particularly difficult recruitment market. Yeah. And I don't foresee that changing in the short term. I see it only getting worse. So, you know, really key for us, therefore, is retention of our staff. Yeah. You know, we've got to make sure that the people we've got there we keep. We are a specialist business, so as soon as we lose somebody, it's not only you lose their skills, you lose their knowledge and their knowledge of our customers. So I think across the whole business, retention is important to us, but especially within development, because I think that will be the challenge for us as we want to scale further, getting the right people. Yeah. And as you said, I don't want just anybody. I would prefer the vacancy than the wrong person, always. You know, we can make things happen between the team. We've got a great collaborative team. You get the wrong person and it is so disruptive. It can bring your business right back. It only takes one person as a misfit to do that. So yeah, that's going to be particularly challenging, I think.
Yeah, and it's you know, and there are different stages of growing teams, I think, and you sort of have the initial stage when you get up to about, we got to about 100 and some, just over 100, and plus about another 40 contractors. And you know, the first sort of 20 or 30, you know everybody, you know their names, you know the partners, their families, the dogs, and then you get to a point around sort of 50 or 60 when you start to know the people but not the families, and then you get to a point where you know sort of go, who's that new person, you know, and it's making sure that while personally we don't have all that knowledge, the business does, and the business it's everybody with that special, in that special way that we've probably always treated them, but it can't be done by one individual at that point, I think.
No, and then your team leaders are really important. So that's what we've built over the last couple of years, whereas before you know, we doubled our team size, and previously it was me and my co-director Lee, who's the tech director. We ran things together, and it was kind of us straight down to the employees directly, and we kind of recognized that we needed people that were specialists in the different areas and that could then look after the individual teams. But then that is a difficult transition, because then you've got somebody in the middle managing your message back who, you know, you've got to trust to run their department. You've got to trust that they will take the company culture and translate that through to their team members. And the move to going 100% remote over COVID, I think, whilst we just kind of put the structure in place, that was difficult, but I think it's forced us to really think carefully about it and be very aware of it and conscious of it. And so it's something that we're working on a lot at the moment, is how we maintain our culture as we work in a hybrid environment, as we now are, kind of in and out of the office, but also with that strong layer of team leaders in place. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense, and it is that sort of the internal issues of growth are as important as the external issues of obviously getting more clients and building the marketing. Just a few sort of simple questions as we come to sort of a close. I'm interested to know what you'd say to anybody that was thinking of going into business right now.
I think, I mean, in general, I think going into business is so broad, it's unhelpful. And if that's what you're thinking, like, I just want to work in a business, perhaps it's not the right thing for you. You're not going in for it for the right reasons, and that from my experience and from everyone that I've met along the way that has been, you know, fantastic at what they've done, they've got a passion for whatever it is they're doing, even if it's not necessarily the subject matter. You know, they absolutely love the requirements of their job, what it is, their daily activity, and they feel like it's something that matters to them. I think if you're just going for business sake, it's, you know, you're going to struggle to find something. It's too broad, and you know, not all businesses are the same. Running a SaaS business, software as a service, SaaS business, is completely different to running a mining business. And to me, the two are not particularly comparable. Now, it might be that you can translate and move across the two, but I think when you're first looking out and you're just looking at business in general, you need to narrow it down. You need to really understand which type of business are you interested in, which sector are you interested in, because otherwise I think you'll struggle to find a fit, or you could end up in something that's a complete wrong fit for you, and then discount business as a whole, and that's probably not fair, because businesses are not all the same.
Love it. A really interesting viewpoint, actually. I speak to quite a few people who sort of say, you know, from an early age, I always wanted to be in business. I don't, you know, whether it's because their parents had been and then found the right one. But you're absolutely right. If you know, we mustn't do it just for the sake of it. It is about finding that thing that we're passionate about. And as we said right at the start, when you love what you do, then it becomes easy, because it's something that you're going to commit to, you know, fully 100% of our time, whether that's in work or out of work at certain points. And just looking back on your own career, is there anything, if you're looking backwards, that you do differently?
Anything that I do differently? I think it's a really difficult one, because everything that I've done along the way has brought me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And you know, I enjoy my job. I'm in a good position. Yes, there are things that perhaps I look back and go, oh, I wouldn't do that like that again. But actually, if I hadn't have done it like that, I wouldn't have learned. And that is so important, that I think looking back and saying what would I do differently, I don't know. I'd probably tell myself not to do a law degree. I've got a very, very pointless law degree. But then if I didn't have that, you know, perhaps I wouldn't have ended up where I am now. So it's probably not a very helpful answer, Chris, but I think as long as you've learned lessons from what happened along the way, I don't think I'd go back and actually change any of it particularly.
No, I personally actually agree. I have a bit of different people I spoke to with different views, but if you change anything, if you like where you are right now, and I do, then if I'd have changed anything in the past, I might not be here right now. Therefore, it's yeah. As I say, as long as we've learned from things, so that if there were things that were challenging historically, we've learned from, so we don't create the same challenges. Then you know, everything we've done. I think it was Nelson Mandela had the phrase, you know, he never loses, he either wins or learns. And you know, if we take that sort of mindset, then we can't lose. And just finally, what would be the best advice you could give to an 18-year-old you if you're back and able to do so?
I think probably not, though. So apart from not doing a law degree, but maybe not that. I think not to compare yourself to others. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's where along the way you lose the most self-confidence, in that yes, you should learn from others, you should watch them, you should gain experience from spending time with them, from witnessing their way of working, but don't directly compare yourself. Don't go, oh, well, they've got this, that and the other and you've not got it, because I don't think that's very helpful. Look at what you have got, look at what you perhaps want to build on, and work on those bits. I think that the comparison just harms. I don't think it does anything particularly constructive.
I completely agree, and I think, yeah. In fact, you haven't used the phrase specifically, but I would say probably half the people that I've spoken to during these wonderful interviews that we're able to do is they talk about overcoming imposter syndrome, and I don't say exactly the same, but it's like, yeah, why am I here? Do I deserve to be here? And you know, the evidence is clearly we are, and everyone else, I think most people feel like that it's certainly during periods of their lives and careers that they may not be at that right stage. But as you said, you had some great people that have that confidence in you to want that, and that's why an external view is often quite useful, because we can't see, we have these blind spots of our own capabilities, and it's really, really important that other people are able to support us and shine the light on those areas.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I haven't used the phrase imposter syndrome, but it's one that I talk about a lot, and I talk about it with some of my team members as well, because it's not just those at the top of the organization that feel it, that at some point someone's going to work out that they've accidentally made you managing director, and I think that the comparison doesn't help with it, the confidence as well, in your ability. And that's why I think it is really important sometimes just to take stock and go, well, do you know what, maybe I'm not X, Y, and Z, but look at what I've achieved. Yes, I was made managing director at 32 of a software business. That's, many people might go, oh gosh, well that's probably not the greatest idea. But in that time, we've released a new product. We've migrated all of our customers from the old system over to the new system, which if you speak to anyone in software, they'll run away and cower at the thought of migration. But we've done it successfully. We've doubled our turnover. We are a profitable software business and a growing software business. So do you know what? Maybe I am an imposter, but I'm doing all right. So far, I'm conning them all very well through good results.
I very much don't think so. I think that's a great way to identify that. Yeah, it's strange because it's a feeling, and the real strange thing, Fiona, is that feelings aren't based on facts, and it's using facts to undermine unhelpful feelings and beliefs that change that, because you've just clearly I don't think imposter would be the right phrase for someone that's achieved what you've just said you've achieved, and that's that absolutely bang on. So that's sound advice for anyone. I think there's very few people, and I think to some extent, if we don't have any self-doubt ever, we're probably fools, in all honesty. I believe absolutely in confidence in what we do at all times as much as possible, but if we don't actually check in and say, are we actually doing the right thing, is this the right thing for us or our business or our team or whatever it might be, then we're probably being a bit foolish. So it makes sense to have a little bit of that. But as you say, if it overtakes, well, not as you say, but if it overtakes too much, if we spend all our time focusing on am I in the right place, then we're probably not going to get the right things done. Well, Fiona, it's been really fascinating, and I really thank you for your time and your insight. And clearly, you and CoolCare are going on to bigger and better things as we grow. And it'd be great to probably, maybe come back in 12 months and just see what the next level are and the next set of learnings are that you've had over that period of time. So, just really thank you for your time this morning. And if anybody listening would like to get in touch with CoolCare, what's the best way of doing so?
So go to our website, coolcare4.co.uk. All of our contact details are on there. So I think that's, if you want to contact CoolCare, go that way. If you want to drop me a message, then connect with me on LinkedIn and say that you've listened to the podcast.
Brilliant. Well, Fiona, thank you so much.
Thank you.